The Artificer is a character class available in the Eberron Rising from the Last War sourcebook. The Battlesmith is a subclass of the Artificer and one of 3 subclasses found for the Artificer in that book. Of all the classes and subclasses of the game, I think the Battlesmith is one of the most versatile ones. And next to the Bladesinger and the College of Swords Bard. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wizards are the most versatile, but I mean as far as being able to be different roles within the party. And even within the Artificer class, I think the Battlesmith holds up pretty well in more roles than the other 2 subclasses, from like support, control, utility, ranged attack, mounted attacks, and frontline combat. In this series of videos, I'm going to be breaking down the subclass in detail. I'll discuss the spells and infusions in separate videos as well. So welcome to the Twisted Tentacle Tavern. I am your innkeeper, Vase Odin. Have a seat, grab yourself a nail. This is the optimization guide for the Artificer Battlesmith. The best way to use this guide is to start with this video and then jump into the spell and infusion videos as you make your spell and infusion selections throughout your character's career. Links to the several spell and infusion videos are going to appear throughout as they become relevant in each level. And before we begin, I want to make sure that I'm clear on the assumptions that I'll be making in these guidelines. So first, I'm assuming you're not using homebrew. I'm assuming that you're familiar with the rules of the game, and that you're allowed as many official books as you'd like for character creation. I'm also assuming that you're not multi-classing, because this can greatly change the value of a specific ability within the class, and it's too complex to go into a series of videos. I mean, I'd probably have to do over 100 videos if you wanted to include multi-classing. Also, not assuming any specific campaigns, so the breakdown is pretty setting agnostic and assumes any combination of races with the class. I'm going to assume that you're not a min-maxer. This is an optimization guide, and it's going to be recommending options that make sense both mechanically and flavor-wise. I'm not a min-maxer, and I understand there are better options if you want to make a character like that. This is not that kind of guide, so it's just a guide to more common sense options that are going to help your character shine at the right moments and not be the center of attention. And finally, I am assuming that you have the Eberron Rising from the Last War book open to the Artificer class section. It starts on page 54, and that you're following along, because I'm not going to be reading each ability verbatim. So let's go ahead and get started. So, level 1 Artificer. Your main stat is intelligence. I'd probably maximize this right away because there are a lot of abilities that benefit from high intelligence. Secondary, I think I would give the Battlesmith a decent constitution. I'd probably go with wisdom next. Things that cause wisdom saves usually take you out of a fight for several rounds, and not having proficiency in wisdom saves means that you have a major weakness there. And dexterity is also a good choice, but I don't think Battlesmith really needs it as much as they do wisdom and constitution. Constitution, of course, is going to help you not only with getting more hit points, but your concentration saving throws. The Battlesmith gets a lot of really good concentration spells, so I believe that in most situations you will be concentrating on a spell, and so you'll want to be able to keep that spell up. You get light and medium armor proficiency as well as shields. It's not bad, and with a d8 for hit points, you're decently durable. You're probably not going to be durable enough to be at the front lines of the party, at least in the first few levels, but you can probably hang in there for a round or two if you need to. Weapon proficiency initially is just simple weapons. It's not very good, but it does get better later. If your campaign has firearms, you gain proficiency with those, so that's actually a big change to things. If they do offer firearms in your campaign, then you would be a really good range attacker right out the gate. You're also going to get proficiency in thieves and tinker tools. This is cool, and at early levels, you can be a decent lockpicker if your party doesn't have a good rogue or bard in the party. You also get an artisan tool proficiency of your choice. I think this can be useful in certain campaigns, and the choice you make will greatly help to develop your character's personality a little bit more. So it's more of a role-playing option. Proficiency in Constitution saves is fantastic. It's going to help keep your concentration and help against poison and disease saves, poison being one of the biggest forms of damage throughout your adventuring career. So that's going to be huge. Intelligence saves are rare, but when you need to make one, it's nice to have this because those can be pretty brutal. So that one's okay. You can choose 2 skill proficiencies. Perception is the most used skill in the game, so I'd probably always go with that as one of them. And then the others are all decent, although I'm not sure why nature is in there. Maybe for the alchemical aspects, if you go that way, who knows. Starting equipment is above average. You start with these tools, and you can start with Scale Mail, which makes you the only class in the game that with medium armor proficiency as your highest that starts with such a good armor. So that's awesome that they give you that right out the bat. At level 1, you also get the magical tinkering ability. The problem here with this ability is that in order to use it, you need tinkers or artisan tools, which you don't start with. It's a cool ability with some utility, but unless you have a nice DM, I don't see how you're going to get to use this when you begin playing at level 1. You have to earn money in order to buy the tools, or opt to start with starting gold instead of equipment, which again, you're going to miss out on a couple of other things if you did that. I don't know. Alternatively, you can pick a background that offers proficiency in an artisan tool, such as the folk hero background, or not proficiency, but lets you start with an artisan tool. So, even though you can do this, I feel that you're not going to be able to use this ability at level 1 unless, you choose a specific background, and that feels like they're forcing you into making choices for your background during character creation that you may not have wanted to make. So I really don't like this, and I don't know why they did that. So here are some things that you can do with the trinket. The ability to shed light, it's somewhat useful. It only sheds light in a 5-foot radius and dim light for another 5 feet. It's not a lot, but I can think of a lot of situations where this could be useful. The recorded message can be situational, but it can be helpful. Basically, anyone can tap the object and it's going to play a recorded message for up to 6 seconds. A good way to relay information to your party if you're like scouting ahead and they're following you behind. The ability to emit a nonverbal sound or order, that one's really cool. That one can be combined with silent image or minor illusion to add another element of complexity to your illusions. I really like this one, and I think it's probably the most universally useful one. Even if you don't combine it with a spell, it's still pretty useful. You can throw the item around a corner and have it make a bear growl, scaring off goblins who are surrounding you, or make rotten food smell good, kind of like a prestidigitation spell. Or you can, use that to get the prince sick, and then you can search his belongings or whatnot. The static visual effect option can let you use a picture, 25 words of text, lines, and shapes. This one's okay. I personally don't care too much for it, but, it's nice to have if you pick that one. So at level 1, we see the Artificer is a very versatile class with spells like Cure Wounds and Spare the Dying. They can serve as great backup healers. With Create Bonfire, Frostbite, Fairy Fire, and Grease, they can make excellent battlefield control characters at low levels. And if you want to go into the spells, the link is going to be there. They're one of those spots for you to click to check out the level 1 spells. Their tool proficiencies can also make them good backups to the Rogue or Bard for opening locks and such. They can even help the front lines with some combat spells and maybe even tank a little bit with their medium armor, along with spells like False Life. But if you can, I recommend that you hang back and play support and battlefield control for now. If you have to attack, I recommend using a ranged spell or spells that require attack rolls specifically, or a ranged weapon. But as early as level 2, the role of the Artificer is going to begin to evolve. And since we're going to be Battlesmith, we're going to begin to see more specialization in combat and combat support. At second level, you gain the ability to infuse mundane items with some magical abilities. Initially, you get 4 infusions that you can pick from a list, but you can only have 2 infused items at a time when you're level 2. The infusions are semi-permanent, so they're going to stay there until you make a new one or until you die. You can't infuse the same item with multiple infusions. That's important, and you can't have any given infusions on more than one item. You can infuse a new item at the end of a long rest, at which point you can immediately attune to it. If you don't attune to it then you have to use the normal attunement rules afterwards, but that's fine. If you try to infuse a new item, but you already have 2 infused items, the oldest one loses its infusion, And your items lose their infusions if you die, but only after a number of days have passed, equal to your intelligence modifier. Level 2 brings us a ton of options to pick from. Again, you can pick the ones that help kind of lean into what you're going to be specializing in, whether it's utility, support, range combat, or melee combat. And all the infusions that are going to be available to you are going to be, we're going to go over them in full detail in the video linked in one of those two. All right, so at level 3, you finally become a battlesmith and you get a ton of stuff. When you reach this level as an artificer, you gain the ability to make an artisan tool that you want by spending an hour with smith's tools. This is neat. It's situational, but at least if you never got a chance to get an artisan tool to do your level 1 ability for the trinket, now you can make one if you wanted to. When you choose a battlesmith archetype, you get the smith's tool proficiency. It's definitely in line with the flavor of the subclass, and it definitely can be useful. You gain the battle ready feature, which gives you the martial weapon proficiency. So now you're going to be a big boss when fighting. You can begin to fight with melee weapons instead of spells if you want. You also can use your intelligence modifier instead of dex or strength for attacking with a magic weapon. This is huge. So now, not only are you able to use stronger weapons, you can actually hit better with them and do more damage because now you're using your intelligence with them. As long as it's a magic weapon, which shouldn't be a problem because you're an artificer, and we'll get into that in just a moment. So if you took my advice from earlier and pumped that intelligence up, you're going to be really good at fighting, very, very decent at it. You also get the Steel Defender. Now, some important things about this: it's not like a familiar in a way. It doesn't roll its own initiative. It goes immediately after you do on your turn, and this can be a good tactical advantage at times. You can move and attack, and then your defender can come and stand next to you, and then either use its reaction when someone attacks you so that they can get disadvantage to hit you, or it can do any other thing. It can take the dodge action on its own without using any of your actions, reactions, or bonus actions, so that's really cool. It definitely gives it a lot of survivability. It can use its reaction to impose disadvantage on an attack against you, provided it's within 5 feet of your attacker. This is really important for survivability of your battlesmith, and it provides a much needed defense. The Steel Defender can also attack, dash, disengage, help, hide, or search if you use your bonus action to command it to do so. It has an attack that's decent at low levels, but I think it doesn't scale well later on. The Defender does scale its HP and saving throws, which makes it really hardy, and it's very survivable, so that's really nice. It can also use an action to heal itself 3 times per day, which is also adding to the survivability and makes it really cool. If it happens to die, you can bring it back to life with full hit points. You can use some smith tools and spending a level 1 or higher spell slot, which, by the way, brings to mind that the hit points of your defender are really good. It's basically 5 times your level plus your intelligence modifier plus 2. That's actually not bad at all. And the defender is medium sized, so if you're a small race, you can ride it as a mount. That's why I say the battlesmith can make a good mounted combatant as well. So you can actually ride it and use the mounted combat rules along with it if you decided to do that. And it makes you even better at fighting, whether it's melee or ranged. You can be a mounted combatant and have more mobility and such. It's a really cool ability. And I'm glad that they made the Steel Defender in the way that they did, as opposed to making it like a familiar. So at level 4, you get an ability score improvement or a feat. I highly recommend boosting your intelligence before you do anything else. Maximize that intelligence, get it to 20 as soon as possible, because a lot of your abilities are based around intelligence, and later on you're going to thank me. Some feats are going to be very, very tempting. Don't do it, not just yet. Get that intelligence score, because pretty much everything that you do as a battlesmith involves your intelligence. Level 5, this is another big level. You get extra attack, and between your Steel Defender and your infusions, it means that you can be pretty dependable frontline fighter now. So at this level, you're going to be fighting a lot of creatures with resistance to non-magical attacks, which means that you can actually be out-damaging the fighter or the barbarian in boss fights if you're using magical infusions and they happen to not have any magic items, which at level 5 can certainly be a possibility. So Battlesmith becomes a top-notch frontline fighter right at level 5. I think at that point you should feel free to go on the front lines and or even be the primary fighter for your fighting group. So that does it for the tier 1 video. Next video we're going to be going over the higher levels, and be sure to check out the videos on infusions and spells, because those we go into deep detail about those specific abilities. And there is going to be a video on the races that I think would be good choices for Battlesmith. Thank you for checking us out, and be sure to check out our Patreon page. Be sure to like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. All right, I'll talk to you guys soon. This is your Innkeeper Vase Odin with the Twisted Tentacle Tavern. I'll talk to you all real soon.